kind of is the title of this deck. There's a lot going on there.
All right, 4 Deathrite Shaman, 4 Delver of Secrets, 4 Young Pyromancers, and 1 Edric Spymaster of Trest. Sorry, Trest.
For you Cube fans out there, you know that.
So Young Pyromancer is really sweet in this deck for a variety of reasons. A lot of cheap and free spells, Daze, Force of Will, Gataxian Probe, and so forth. It's a really good buttress against a lot of the commonly played removal of the format, especially Liliana of the Veil. And alongside Edric, of course, you can just go off.
This is a pretty loud declaration here by Rill that Tarmogoyf stinks. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but no Tarmos. So
usually comes at the expense when you have Young Pyromancer. It's one or the other because you can only afford so many 2-mana spells.
Now, Jaco may look a little bit familiar because the last time we were here and you and I were here together, he won with Sneak and Show. So he is 3-0-1 again, off to a beautiful start, looking maybe defend the title here as Rill is going to play a Deathrite Shaman and simply pass the turn back over to Jason, who's going to sacrifice a Scalding Tarn rather emphatically, and he has a nice Sneak and Show deck. Yes, sir, I love this guy.
There's a lot of alterations both in his hand and his deck, so...
Not only does he dress well, but he's got a beautiful looking deck. Oh my God. This is the best part of my day. Between this and WrestleMania, I can die happy. Doesn't take much. Maybe a Dunkin' Donut or 12, whatever. Ponder here. Gonna resolve. See if he's gonna keep it.
So why'd you get so indignant yesterday when I brought the box of Munchkins back
I have no
here?
idea what you're talking about. That didn't happen. If it wasn't on camera, it did not happen.
So spoiler alert, Cedric is sort of on a diet, and I get a lot of joy out of bringing back food he's not allowed to eat when I go on break.
Up to and including bear claws from Panera Bread. Which is just uncalled for, Patrick. This is serious for me. The problem with the Munchkins, in all honesty, is that it was a mixed bag. Mixed bag of Munchkins is unacceptable. It's glazed Munchkins or no Munchkins. Everyone knows that.
Well, I wanted to eat some too, so I didn't realize this
It's not about you. It's about me and the Munchkins. Here is a Young Pyromancer. Off of the Deathrite Shaman, Rill going to tap Wasteland as well. He's going to leave up 1 blue mana with that Underground Sea, presumably to cast another spell, and he will. Another copy of Deathrite Shaman.
So Eric's mana is pretty strained, and Deathrite Shaman does a lot of work for him in this capacity. He is playing 4 copies of Wasteland in his 4-color deck. Volcanic Islands, Underground Seas, and Tropical Islands, and some fetch lands are his mana base. So he's really leaning on Deathrite Shaman to give him the various color mana he needs to cobble together all of these different spells.
Yeah, we've seen decks do this before. Esper Deathblade is the one that comes to mind, really relying on Deathrite Shaman to provide a bunch of mana, and hopefully it just doesn't die, as here's a copy of Brainstorm, and it's a really nice one. So 3 cards coming here for Jaco.
This man must love this deck.
Well, he won an open with it already, so definitely moving in on it. I mean, it's still a very, very good deck, and he has a gorgeous version. I might have Nick do a deck tech with him just so that we can actually just look at it.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows what Sneak and Show does at this point, but his version is the most beautiful I have ever seen.
That's what I love about Legacy. You have people who are invested in their deck for, in some cases upwards of a decade.
Yeah.
And so you get this level of passion and investment about it. Makes it really sweet.
It's a really just a beautiful deck as Jaco does resolve his Brainstorm. Does have, of course, a Scalding Tarn in play to make it a perfect Brainstorm, so long as there's no Stifle hanging out there in Rill's hand. And Rill's deck is, it feels like Esper Deathblade-esque, but it's more of a Delver shell. He's really just trying to be all 4 colors and do some really broken stuff with Deathrite and other cards. Again, Young Pyromancer over Tarmogoyf here, but he's got a lot of spells in his deck, so he's basically saying that I want Young Pyromancer to be a good card in my deck.
And it's possible Young Pyromancer is something of a reaction, in comparison to Tarmogoyf to Liliana of the Veil and Abrupt Decay's prevalence in the format. Now, of course, Abrupt Decay also works against Young Pyromancer, but it's easier to squeeze a little bit of value out of it as opposed to something like Tarmogoyf that just has a big bullseye on it.
No sacrifice of the Scalding Tarn yet here. And what are we going to have here? This is an ice targeting an island and going to trigger the old Young Pyromancer.
Nice.
It's rare that we actually see ice get cast.
This is a nice, for you lovers of value, this is a nice turn. Get to cycle it, tap down a mana, and make a 1/1.
I like it.
Lots of little edges.
And a tap here to sacrifice this Scalding Tarn. Is it going to be good to go? It will be. So we'll see what Jason wants to search up here. Probably a rather beautiful land. And it's going to be a mountain.
These lands look really nice.
I would be afraid to play with this deck because I wouldn't want to damage anything. because I borrow decks a decent amount. You know, the Painter deck I played in Seattle, for example, I borrowed from one of our buyers, Jonathan Suarez, and he has like the nicest foils of every card, and that's sweet. And I love playing with nice cards. But this is another level entirely.
Yeah. Although it does make it a little confusing. Jason has what appears to be a Matenda Lion, the second to the right, in his hand. I'm pretty positive it is not that card, in fact, but that is what it looks like from here.
Yeah, I believe it is a sneak attack. This is a copy of Burning Wish. Now, this is a card you don't see a ton of in Sneak and Show decks, but there are 3 here. The Sneak and Show variant here by Jason, he only has 3 Show and Tells in his main deck, and he has 1 he can wish for, along with a Thoughtseize, a Shattering Spree, an Eye of Nowhere, a Toxic Deluge, which is a sweet target. You see Daze is going to be trying to target this this Burning Wish, but he also has a couple copies of Pyroclasm hiding on the board as well. So pretty sweet take on the deck.
And definitely some sweet targets to get against Eric's board of all 2 Dominus creatures.
You see Young Pyromancer working overtime now. There's a Bolt. So Rill is really putting on the clock here. Now, don't forget, Eric Rill has won a Legacy Open with a Grixis Delver deck in Cincinnati last year, beating Ruben Bressler and his Imperial Painter deck in the finals. So he's very familiar with this kind of strategy. I'm a little bit surprised to see Rill not playing Storm this weekend because that's kind of what he's known for. But he does like to do the Delver thing every now and again.
Well, this is a pretty sweet take on it. Again, he's taking a lot of liberties here with Deathrite Shaman. He needs it to stick, most likely, to cast his spells efficiently. But you can see he's doing a lot of powerful stuff, and a lot of it's being enabled by Young Pyromancer as well.
City of Traders there in Jaco's hand. I think he's seeing if he can actually go off and do anything sweet here. He's having some real issues right now, though.
Well, the bottleneck may be double red. I don't think he has the ability to play Sneak Attack this turn and activate it. And Show and Tell is unlikely to get him out of that situation either, so he just has to pack it up.
Well, Eric Rill will take down the beautiful deck from Jason Jaco. Rug Delver, we put in quotes as there's a lot of things going on here with his deck, but at the end of the day, we'll deem it Rug Delver. Yeah. Up a game over Sneak and
It's
Show.
actually it's closer to Nephilim Delver, but that's not something in our parlance yet.
We'll take a look at the sideboards. You want to start, or should I?
I'll take it.
All right, go for it.
Eric's the one kind of painting outside the lines here, so we'll take a look at what he's got going on. 4 Cabal Therapies, a Life from the Loam to combo with Wasteland as appropriate, Ancient Grudge, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Submerge, a Misdirection, a Marsh Casualties, a Mizium Skin, and 2 Pyroblasts. I like bringing in the Pyroblasts and the Cabal Therapies. Cabal Therapy is another awesome synergy with Young Pyromancer, and not something that a deck like Bug Delver can really enable.
Yeah, that's true. I really would like to talk to Eric and see how he came to this approach with his deck, because when you think of Delver decks, we think of 3, right? We think of blue, white, red, we think of Bug, we think of Rug. Last weekend in Charlotte, we saw Rug Delver make the finals of the Invitational in the hands of Jesse Hefner, so that deck is still quite good. We saw blue, white, red in the Legacy Open. Michael Majors wins that, and we have seen Bug Delver over the Open Series in Season 1 run rampant over everybody. So Rill has decided, okay, I've got this really unique approach to this deck where I'm going to cut Tarmogoyf, forget that. Nimble Mongoose, yeah, it's got Shroud, forget that. I don't want that. I want Young Pyromancer, I want Delver, I want Deathrite, I want Edric as a 1-of, which is a card we never see in Legacy, and then pretty much the same spell suite that we always see from these Delver decks.
Yeah. Well, Young Pyromancer is a big payout. You know, and it comes with upsides that Tarmogoyf or other creatures you can play in that slot do not have.
Yeah, I guess the question in that last game that we watched was, you know, if you were to compare the two between Young Pyromancer and Tarmogoyf, let's say that Young Pyromancer was a Tarmogoyf. Do you think that Young Pyromancer was better there or worse than Tarmogoyf?
Well, these are maybe slightly worse, although there's some different upsides. One is Young Pyromancer, you just cast on turn 2. It requires no graveyard setup.
Okay.
Number 2, Eric is playing with Deathrite Shaman. He doesn't have to concern himself with removing the only the only card type in a graveyard at any time. He can remove creatures or spells or lands as he sees fit.
Okay.
And then the last upside is you just have way more protection against things like Abrupt Decay and especially Liliana the Veil. Okay. That's a card that Tarmogoyf matches up very poorly with at times. Young Pyromancer, exceptional against Liliana for a variety of reasons. So, depending on what decks you're anticipating seeing, there's definitely an argument for Young Pyromancer rather than the Tarmogoyf.
We'll take a look at Jaco's sideboard here really quickly. Again, he's got those Burning Wish targets. He's got a Show and Tell Thoughts. He's a Shattering Spree, and I have Nowhere, a copy of Toxic Deluge, and then 2 Pyroclasms. There's a chance he brings in 1 Pyroclasm here, leaves another one to wish for. There's also a chance he just brings in both of them and tries to find them via Brainstorm, Ponder, or whatever other cantrips he has. Has 2 copies of Grafdigger's Cage, 3 copies of Blood Moon, 2 Through the Breach, and then a Pyroblast. Gotta love Blood Moon here.
Oh, I'm Blood Mooning Eric for sure.
Yep. Have to bring him in, I think. Again, I wouldn't be surprised with Jaco. You know, he saw some cards there. He saw Young Pyromancer, he saw Deathrite Shaman, but more importantly, what he saw was an Underground Sea and a Wasteland and a deck that does not probably have any basic lands, and he's definitely a proficient Legacy player as he has won a Legacy Open with Sneak and Show, so you have to imagine that he's going to be reaching for those Blood Moons knowing that Rill has no basics.
Yeah, even at the minimum, you can assume that Eric is some sort of gracious deck with a Tropical Island in his deck to activate the green part of Deathrite Shaman.
Yep.
That kind of deck can almost certainly not afford to play basics, especially when Eric's deck is sensitive to having all colors of mana early on in the game. You saw, you had to assume he has cantrips, he has Deathrite Shaman, and he has Lightning Bolt. So his mana is really strained. He needs to cobble this all together early. So you can pretty safely assume that there's no room for basic lands in this list. So I'd be going to Blood Moon very fast.
Wouldn't surprise me either if he heads that direction. We'll see exactly which way he wants to go. As we're going to move to game number 2 here between Sneak and Show and Rug Delver. Eric Rill, number 11 on our Season 2 leaderboard right now. He's looking to get some points as everyone above him is not here. Wants to work his way towards a Season 2 qualification or one of those 8 at-large bids at the end of the season. And we'll see what ends up happening here.
Yeah, Eric is another player who's located in such a fashion that attending Cincinnati and Detroit over the next couple of weeks is realistic as well. So if you can make it here, you can probably make it to those events as well.
Chances are. Chances are. We'll see what happens. It'll be fun. See, Jason's going to take a mulligan here. Looks like Rill is going to do the same. Don't forget, some big-name players out there still. Owen Turtwall sitting at 4-0 so far, as is Eric Rill. Sam Black sitting at 2-1-1, I believe. Matthias Hunt and his, boy, his high tiding has been a little slow. 2-0-2.
No, in fairness, it isn't necessarily Matthias's fault that this has happened, but it is noteworthy when the high tide player has 2 draws over 3 rounds.
Shakaru.
I'm not saying we can convict the man. I'm saying that circumstantial evidence points to it being Matthias's fault.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Well, it's different. In civilian court, you actually only need to be more than 50% likely that someone is at fault to convict someone.
Oh, okay.
And
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day. So can I convict you of bringing me munchkins when I didn't want them?
Well, if you had any sort of legal authority, then yes, because you could be 100% sure that was on purpose.
Oh, okay. Both players taking a look at 6 cards here. Jaco's going to shrug his shoulders, look like he's going to keep. And that's an island, just has to pass the turn back here, so no cantripping. He also has a couple of copies of Sensei's Divine Top in his deck too, so nothing sweet going on here.
Kind of an unorthodox build.
There's a Deathrite Shaman. Arguably the most important card in Rill's deck, really ties the room together.
Oh yeah.
Blood Moon comes rolling off the top there for Jaco. Gonna play a Misty Rainforest, just kick it on back. No sacrifice just yet. I think that Misty Rainforest is reserved for a volcanic island this game.
Yeah, and no reason for Jason to sacrifice in the face of Eric's Deathrite Shaman. Eric does have a polluted delta here, so he can make mana from it this turn, but there was no guarantee that was the case coming into the turn.
Volcanic via a polluted delta will put Rill down to 19. We'll see what he has to do on his second turn with the potential to have 3 mana thanks to Deathrite Shaman. And Jaco did win the last Legacy Open when we were here, October 2013, you and I. I do remember it pretty well, in the exact same room, actually. We were just on the other side of it. His Sneak and Show build then was very, very counter-heavy, and he ended up beating an Oops All Spells deck in the finals. There's a Young Pyromancer.
And this is one of the openings where I think Young Pyromancer is likely to be better than Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, because now Blood Moon isn't as, I guess, appetizing or appealing. Looks like Jaco just going to pass the turn back. Not even going to try to deploy a Blood Moon here. A little interesting.
Well, you have to question what's the value of Blood Moon here if you had to sacrifice 2 fetch lands, which allows Eric to make at least 2 mana off of these Deathrite Shamans.
That's true.
Also, you're turning all of Eric's lands into mountains. For all you know, Eric just has a bunch of bolts in his hand.
Yeah, maybe he wants mountains. Maybe he wants the Young Pyromancer, which he does. Rill's hand is great, by the way. He's got a Surgical Extraction. He's got a Force of Will of Daze. I'm not sure if he has another blue card or not, but he's got to be really happy where he's at right now. Going to get in with Deathrite Shaman, too. And Jaco shrugs his shoulders and says, yeah, that's good to go. Attack here for 2, 3, and 4. Players going to make sure the life totals are correct here before they do move forward. And it looks like we're happy. I think Rill is going to just kick it back over to Jaco and say, can you beat this?
Yeah, and now any spell that Jason casts is an enormous cost because if Eric counters it or fights over it at all, at the minimum, there's 2 more Young Pyromancer triggers that occur. Yep. So Jason needs to tread very lightly here.
see a Lotus Petal there. A rather gorgeous one. Looks like it's time to make a move. At least one. There goes the Misty. I'm going to get an island. Sacrifice this one. Probably going to go get a mountain, I would presume. Yep, so there's that.
Yeah, he did see Wasteland game 1 out of Eric, so if he can play around that, all the better for him.
Some people don't like mountain in the Sneak and Show deck, but it looks like it's pretty important here.
The problem is drawing a mountain is pretty bad. It is nice to have, if you could put it in your deck and be able to fetch for it sometimes, but never actually draw it, I think everyone would play a mountain.
An attempt to resolve Blood Moon around days. That's the goal here. Will it work? Does Rill care?
Yeah, it's possible he feels he has enough of a clock right now where he can say, okay, that resolves, I'll save my Force of Will for something else.
This is a daze. Trigger both those young Pyromancers. That's definitely an appealing play. Jaco says, I'll pay 1. 2 more elemental tokens will be coming. This is 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a lot of damage.
This is a lot of damage.
Force of Will on Misdirection. 2 more triggers from young Pyromancers. So we're looking at 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, potentially 11 damage with Deathrite Shaman.
And even though this isn't necessarily setting up lethal, what I like about the sequencing a lot is knocking the Sneak and Show player below 8 means that Griselbrand isn't nearly the same threat.
There's a Surgical Extraction. That's going to be 2 more triggers. Is that it?
Oh, yeah.
2, 4,
might just be killing him.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. He can deal 13. He's got 7 elemental tokens. That's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And if he plays a Swamp with Deathrite Shaman, it'll be 12, 13. So he's essentially at 1 life right now, is Jaco.
You know what's also really nice about the setup from Eric? He has a lot of insurance of getting hit from Emrakul right now.
Yes. It actually is very important.
It doesn't even matter. He gets hit once, he loses 6 creatures or whatever.
No, it's important that his Griselbrand, and even Griselbrand may not, oddly enough, be able to get the job done here, which is crazy to even think about. It's time to untap all those Chris Van meters. Wow.
Yeah, this is pretty insane.
All right, Rill. Showing exactly why people talk about Young Pyromancer as one of the best 2-drops in Legacy. It just hasn't found a home yet, but you see it this game, it's got to be better than Tarmogoyf this go around.
Yeah, and you know, part of it is just, it has a lot of the same upside that Delver of Secrets has, in that in a format where there's a bunch of really good cheap spells and way to protect things, playing a bunch of spells and a couple of creatures with very powerful base.
Yeah. Here's an attack for 2, 4, 5. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 man meters, plus 2 Pyromancers. That'll be 11. And Jaco's going to go down to 3.
Now Jaco can't crack a fetch land or use an Ancient Tomb for mana.
Yeah, and he's going to extend the hand. No show and tell there. Eric Rill's going to get the job done. He's 5-0 with Rug Delver. Very innovative take on the deck. Young Pyromancers, Deathrite Shamans, Delver of Secrets, even an Edric thrown in there. But at the end of the day, he is the winner, and he is off to a beautiful start in this Legacy tournament.